Well, welcome back into the Mid-Norfolk garden. And if you can remember, a couple of years ago we've shown you our mature fig trees that we had growing here on the farm for probably the last 40 years. I think it had been growing. This is a little rooted cutting that we managed to save off it because unfortunately that big mature fig tree was lost as part of the building work. I'm missing my figs. I've got one beautiful ripe example here and one more on the adjacent bough, but we're going to try an experiment of growing figs in pots, and I'm starting to put a collection together of what I hope are going to be different varieties. I don't honestly know what the variety is that we've got here because it was here when we bought the house and had been growing for many years. It's what the owner of the house described as a green fig as opposed to a brown fig, which she didn't rate at all. But cut into, when they're ripe, they're a dark purple colour and extremely good eating. So I'm keen to get this plant growing really well. I've got it in a really good sized pot, as you can see. And this is the same variety off another little shoot. This was a tiny little thing beginning of this season, and it's growing away quite nicely. But I'm putting a collection together, and over the course of the season, on various visits to garden centres, etc., I'm starting to collect a few more, and this is another example. Slightly different shaped leaf, and I think that's one way you tell these different figs apart. Just look at this leaf with its quite deep serration. This is a variety, I think this is the Rouge de Bordeaux. Yeah, Rouge de Bordeaux, which I don't think I've grown before, and the leaf does tend to suggest that it's going to be different from the one that we've had here on the farm before. It's showing a little bit of stress here. When you do buy these and first pot them up, it's very easy just to forget that they're in very small containers, and it takes a season for the roots to get out. You can see this plant starting to die back a little bit from the base where it's just not had quite enough moisture. This is the old classic variety, brown turkey, which is very widely available. Again, I'm not sure whether this is a smaller leaf variety or this is just a young plant. Again, it's been planted out from its container into a terracotta pot, and that should be an adequate size to grow it on for at least 1 or 2 years before it needs potting up. And the final variety we've managed to source locally, just look at this. It says it's a good fruiting variety, although there's no fruits on it. Carica Ice Crystal. So Ice Crystal fig. We'll see. I don't know what that one's like. If anybody has experience of eating ice crystal, do let me know what you think of it. Nice sized plant. I think it was $9.99 from one of the local garden centres. Very deeply serrated leaf again, but an interesting specimen plant, and one I hope that will do well. Again, I've just put it into quite a small pot considering the size of that fig tree, so these are probably going to need potting up quite quickly. I will try and source over the course of the next 12 months something more akin to that size in terms of the pot for these, because this one's been in here now 2 years. Looking a bit end of seasonish, to be honest with you. There's even a bit of leaf dieback on this. Compared to the figs that we grow planted out properly, you just don't see that. The growth on them has been far more vigorous, but just look at the young figs on this. They do say that a good way of growing figs is to confine the root ball, and that pots, if you can manage to get the watering and feeding right, are an excellent way of growing a good crop of figs. So we will see. And the final one I've got to show you, just a home-based fig standard, came in a tiny little pot. I'm convinced, having grown this now for about a month to 6 weeks, they were literally dug up where they've been growing somewhere down in the Mediterranean, rammed into pots and bunged into home base very quickly because it almost lost its entire top canopy of leaves. Just managed to keep it going, and it's starting to grow away nicely now. I have cut quite a bit of the leaf growth off because it browned off like this. You see the scalding on the back of that leaf? Again, just the plant being incredibly stressed. But no sign of any embryonic young fig fruit on there yet. But There may be some just developing here. I can't tell whether that's a young fig or another leaf bud at this stage. It's too small to tell. But that's got itself established now. The root ball again still going to be very small despite the size of the pot it's planted in. I'm leaving the stake in with that, and hopefully I will have a selection and variety of fig fruit over the coming couple of years, as long as we can keep them from drying out. And the other thing that I've done is take cuttings. Now just look at those, they're looking incredibly healthy. They're just little stem cuttings that I took off the fig trees when we were doing some prunings. This was a ripe piece of wood, not green growth from this year, but last year's growth. There's no sign of it coming out the bottom yet, but just looking at the healthy, fresh bud break and growth of leaf on this plant, I think I will leave those in there and should have another couple of figs to get going next year, I hope. We'll see. So that's my fig experiment. Do let me know how you're getting on with figs. Are you growing them in pots? Are you planting them out? What do you think of the different varieties we've got here? The one I'm most excited about, because I don't think I've had it before, is Rouge de Bordeaux. Sounds really quite a nice variety, but having not eaten one that I know of, you never quite know what you're buying, do you, with these things, unless you can buy a mature plant and taste the flesh of the fig before you actually buy it, which is almost impossible to do in this country. We'll see how we get on, and I'll keep you updated. Thanks for watching.